The key turned in the lock at 3:47 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. I wasn't supposed to be home for another 3 hours, but the client meeting had been cancelled at the last minute. As I pushed open the door to our 5-bedroom colonial in the suburbs, I heard it, a sound that would forever divide my life into before and after. Laughter. Her laughter. And a deeper voice responding with words I couldn't quite make out. I stood in the foyer, briefcase still in hand, and listened. The sounds were coming from upstairs. From our bedroom. My heart should have been racing, but instead, I felt an eerie calm settle over me. Perhaps some part of me had known for months. The late work meetings. The new lingerie hidden in the back of her drawer. The way she angled her phone away from me when texting. The pieces had been there all along, waiting for this moment to click into place. I set my briefcase down silently and removed my shoes. Years of marriage had taught me which stairs creaked. I avoided the 3rd step, the 7th, and the one right before the landing. As I climbed, the voices became clearer. Think he suspects anything? It was a man's voice, smooth and confident. Derek? God, no. He's completely oblivious. My wife's voice dripped with contempt I'd never heard directed at me before. He's so buried in his work that I could parade you through the living room and he'd probably just wave and ask if you wanted coffee. The man laughed. Poor bastard. Well, his loss is my gain. I reached the bedroom door, which stood ajar. Through the gap, I could see them on the bed we'd bought together 5 years ago. The bed where we'd made plans for our future. Where we'd comforted each other through her mother's death. Where we'd celebrated promotions and anniversaries. I didn't burst in. I didn't yell or break down. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took 3 photos, making sure the timestamps and faces were clear. Then I turned and walked back downstairs with the same careful quiet I'd used to ascend. In my study, I sat in the leather chair she'd given me for my 40th birthday and opened my laptop. The folder was already there, created 3 weeks ago when the private investigator I'd hired delivered his final report. Photos. Videos. Dates. Hotel receipts. Text message transcripts recovered from phone bills. The affair had been going on for 7 months. His name was Ryan. He worked in sales at a tech company, drove a leased BMW he couldn't quite afford, and was still legally married himself, though separated. The investigator had been thorough. I knew Ryan's address, his debts, his child support obligations, and the fact that he'd run this same playbook twice before, targeting married women with money. But I also knew something Ryan didn't. I knew that my wife had been systematically moving money from our joint accounts into a separate account I wasn't supposed to know about. Small transfers, nothing that would trigger alerts. Over 8 months, she'd siphoned off nearly $47,000. I opened the folder labeled Exit Strategy and reviewed the documents one final time. Divorce papers, already filled out. A complete asset inventory. Documentation of her affair and financial infidelity. A new apartment lease in my name only, starting next week. Credit cards I'd opened separately. A changed direct deposit for my paycheck going to a new bank account. I'd even retained the best divorce attorney in the city, a woman with a reputation for ruthlessness and a success rate that bordered on legendary. She'd reviewed everything and assured me that between the affair, the financial misconduct, and the prenuptial agreement my wife had signed, and apparently forgotten about, I would retain the house, my retirement accounts, and my dignity. The laughter upstairs continued. I checked my watch. They'd been at it for 30 minutes before I arrived. They'd probably continue for another 30 after I left. I had time. I forwarded copies of everything to my attorney, to my own secure cloud storage, and to 3 trusted friends with instructions to hold unless something happened to me. Then I made a call to my wife's employer, a conservative financial firm that had a strict morality clause in their employment contracts. Finally, I texted Ryan's wife. Just the photos. No explanation needed. Then I sat back and waited. An hour later, I heard footsteps on the stairs. The shower had run for 15 minutes, and I could picture them trying to erase the evidence, not knowing that evidence had already been documented, backed up, and filed with my attorney. I remained in my study, door open, reviewing quarterly reports as if this were any other Thursday afternoon. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. I'd spent 3 weeks preparing for this moment, running through scenarios, planning responses. Emotion was a luxury I couldn't afford. Derek. Her voice floated down the hallway, falsely bright. I didn't hear you come in. When did you get home? About an hour ago, I replied, not looking up from my laptop. Silence. Then footsteps approached quickly. She appeared in the doorway, wet hair pulled into a ponytail, wearing the yoga outfit she always claimed to have worn to the gym. Her face had gone pale. An hour. But I didn't hear. Where were you? Here. Working. I gestured at the computer. Where were you? She recovered quickly. I'd give her that. 12 years of marriage had taught her my tells, but she'd forgotten I'd learned hers too. The way her left hand rose to touch her neck. The slight pause before lying. The overcompensation in her smile. Jim, then grabbed coffee with Sarah. You know how we lose track of time. The lies came smoothly, practiced. How many times had she used this same excuse? Ham. I closed the laptop. Is Ryan still here, or did he leave through the back? I watched her face cycle through emotions in rapid succession. Shock. Fear. A flash of anger. Then, surprisingly, something like relief. The mask dropped, and I saw exhaustion underneath. How long have you known? Her voice was barely a whisper. Long enough. She slumped against the doorframe. Derek, listen. It's not what you think. It's complicated. We can talk about this. I can explain. Good, I interrupted, standing. Because you're both leaving. What? You heard me. I walked past her into the living room, and she followed, confusion and panic warring on her face. I've already filed for divorce. The papers were delivered to my attorney this morning. You'll be served tomorrow. I'm also filing a civil suit for the $47,000 you've embezzled from our joint accounts. Her mouth opened and closed. You can't. The money, I needed. You needed it for what? The hotel rooms? The gifts for Ryan? The apartment you were planning to lease downtown? I pulled out my phone and showed her the investigator's photos. I know everything, Jennifer. Every date. Every lie. Every dollar. Tears started flowing, but I felt nothing. I'd cried 3 weeks ago when the investigator first showed me the evidence. I'd raged and broken down in the privacy of a hotel room where no one could see. I'd grieved the death of my marriage alone. Now there was only cold clarity. The prenup you signed stipulates that in case of infidelity, you leave with what you brought into the marriage and nothing more. You brought $14,000 and a used Honda. The house is mine. The cars are mine. The retirement accounts are mine. The investments are mine. Derek, please. We can work through this. Marriage counseling. I'll end it with Ryan. I'll do whatever. The doorbell rang. Jennifer's eyes went wide. Who is that? Ryan's wife, I imagine. I sent her the photos about an hour ago. I walked toward the door. She said she'd be right over. You didn't. Jennifer grabbed my arm. Derek, you can't do this. You're destroying lives. Think about what you're doing. I paused and looked at her directly for the first time since this conversation began. I thought about it for 3 weeks while I planned every detail of today. You had 7 months to think about what you were doing. You chose not to. The doorbell rang again, more insistently. There's more, I continued calmly. I contacted the HR department at Preston Financial this afternoon. They were very interested to learn that one of their senior compliance officers has been having an affair. Particularly interested, given the morality clause in your contract. Her face went white. My job? Derek, that's my career. You can't. I already did. They're conducting an internal investigation starting tomorrow. I opened the door. Ryan's wife stood there, a woman about our age with tired eyes and a set jaw. Behind her, I could see Ryan in a car at the curb, phone pressed to his ear, looking panicked. "You must be Derek," she said. "I'm Christine. Thank you for the photos. I needed them for my lawyer." "Of course. Would you like to come in?" Jennifer made a sound like a wounded animal. "This is insane. You're all insane. It was just, we weren't hurting anyone." Christine's laugh was bitter. "Not hurting anyone? I have 3 kids who are about to learn their father is a serial cheater. Again." "You knew?" I asked. "Suspected. He's done this twice before. But your evidence sealed it. My attorney says I'll get primary custody and most of the assets this time." She looked at Jennifer with something like pity. "He told you that you were special, didn't he? That his marriage was dead and you were the only one who understood him." Jennifer's tears fell harder. "He's 50,000 in debt," Christine continued. "Child support from his first marriage, credit cards, that ridiculous car lease. He targets women with money. You're the 3rd I know about." Ryan appeared at the door then, trying to push past Christine. "Babe, let me explain." "Don't call me that." Christine's voice could have frozen fire. I stepped between them. "This is my house. You're not welcome here." Ryan puffed up, trying to look intimidating in his designer polo and pressed chinos. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Jennifer doesn't love you. She hasn't for years. She told me everything, how boring you are, how predictable, how dead your marriage is." "Was," I corrected. "How dead our marriage was. Past tense. And yes, I am smart. Smart enough to document everything. Smart enough to hire an excellent attorney. Smart enough to protect my assets before making any moves." I pulled out a folder from the hall table. I'd placed it there this morning, knowing this moment would come. "This is interesting reading. Your employment history. 3 jobs in 5 years, each ending with you being quietly asked to leave for inappropriate relationships with colleagues or clients. Your debt profile. Your rental history, evicted twice for non-payment." Ryan's confidence faltered. "How did you can't just investigate people. Private investigators are completely legal. And thorough." I handed him a document. "This is a cease and desist order. You're to have no contact with Jennifer, with me, or with any of our associates. If you violate it, I'll pursue harassment charges." "That's bullshit. You can't stop me from." "From what?" "Continuing an affair with a woman who's about to be unemployed and broke." I let that sink in. "You see, Ryan, I know your type. You don't want Jennifer. You want what Jennifer has, or had. The nice house, the financial security, the image of success. But that's gone now." Jennifer had collapsed onto the couch, head in her hands, sobbing. "This isn't happening. This can't be happening." Christine spoke up. "Where is he living, by the way? Because our house is in my name only, and he's not welcome there anymore. I already had the locks changed." Ryan's face went red. "You can't do that. My stuff is in there." "Your stuff is on the lawn. The neighbors are enjoying the show." Christine's smile was sharp. "My attorney says you have 24 hours to collect it before I donate everything to Goodwill." "Jennifer," Ryan turned to my wife, desperation creeping in. Tell them we're in love. Tell them this means something." Jennifer looked up, mascara running down her face, and laughed, a horrible, broken sound. "In love? Ryan, I don't even know you. I don't know what I was thinking. This was a mistake. A huge, life-destroying mistake." "So that's it." Ryan's voice rose. "You're just going to dump me too? I left my family for you." "You left your family for yourself," Christine interjected. "Like you always do. I'm just the only wife who's finally done with your second chances." My phone buzzed. A text from my attorney, papers served via process server outside the house. "She's been officially notified. Timeline starts now." I showed the message to Jennifer. "You've been served. You have 72 hours to remove your personal belongings from this house. Anything left after that becomes mine to dispose of as I see fit. Your car can stay until Monday. It's in my name, but I'm feeling generous enough to let you make arrangements. Where am I supposed to go? Jennifer's voice was small, broken. That's not my problem anymore. The words should have felt cruel, but they just felt necessary. You should have thought about that before you transferred $47,000 into a secret account. Before you spent 7 months lying to me. Before you brought him into our bed. Ryan tried one more time. Look, man, this is between you and your wife. I'm going to. You're going to leave, I said firmly. And then you're going to deal with the lawsuit I'm filing Monday morning for alienation of affection. It's still a viable cause of action in this state, and I have more than enough evidence. His face went pale. You can't sue me for that. Watch me. My attorney estimates we can get at least $50,000 in damages. Your wages will be garnished until it's paid in full. I glanced at Christine. Your divorce settlement might want to account for that debt. Already did, Christine said with satisfaction. My lawyer is very thorough. Ryan looked between us, reality finally crashing down. No wife. No home. No Jennifer. New debts and legal troubles mounting. This is insane. Over what? Some fun between adults? Nobody was supposed to get hurt. But people did, I said quietly. Christine's children. My life. The trust that took years to build. You don't get to destroy things and then act surprised when there are consequences. A car pulled up outside, my sister's SUV. I'd asked her to be here for this moment, knowing I might need support. She walked in, took one look at the scene, and moved directly to my side. You good, little brother? I'm good. And surprisingly, I was. Jennifer tried one last appeal. Derek, please. We've been married for 12 years. Doesn't that mean anything? Can't we at least talk about this like adults? We are talking about it like adults, I replied. Adult consequences for adult decisions. You chose this path. You planned it. The secret account proves that. You wanted out, but you wanted my money too. Now you get neither. My sister handed me a check. From selling those concert tickets you mentioned. They were in your name only, so they're your asset to liquidate. Jennifer's face showed recognition. Those were anniversary tickets. For us. For next month. They were tickets I purchased, I corrected. There is no us anymore. There's no anniversary to celebrate. The following 72 hours unfolded exactly as I'd planned. Jennifer moved in with her sister, the only family member who would speak to her after the truth came out. Her parents had called me, apologetic and horrified. Her father, a retired military man with strict views on honor and fidelity, had been particularly scathing. I didn't raise her to be a cheater and a thief, he'd said on the phone, his voice heavy with disappointment. You have my support, son. Whatever you need. That Monday, Jennifer arrived at Preston Financial to find her office packed into boxes and a security escort waiting. The morality clause was clear, and the company's reputation meant everything in the financial sector. They couldn't afford even a hint of scandal. She was offered a choice: resign quietly with a minimal severance, or be terminated for cause with nothing. She resigned. Ryan's life collapsed even faster. His employer, already aware of his history, used this as the final excuse to let him go. Creating a hostile work environment was the official reason. The real reason was that clients didn't trust him anymore. Word traveled fast in their industry. I watched it all from a distance, feeling neither satisfaction nor remorse. Just a quiet sense of order being restored. My attorney, Patricia, proved worth every penny of her substantial retainer. She moved through the divorce proceedings like a surgical strike, precise, devastating, and utterly professional. Your prenup is ironclad, she explained during one of our meetings. She signed it willingly, with her own attorney present. The infidelity clause is unambiguous. And the financial malfeasance gives us additional leverage. What about her claim that she needed the money for personal expenses? I asked. Patricia smiled coldly. Bank records show the money went to hotel rooms, dinners at expensive restaurants, gifts, and rent deposits. None of which qualify as necessary personal expenses. We're pursuing full restitution plus interest and legal fees. The preliminary hearing was brief. Jennifer's attorney, a mid-level general practitioner she could barely afford, tried to argue for a settlement that would give her 30% of the marital assets. Patricia demolished the argument in under 10 minutes. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the evidence with visible distaste. Mrs. Harrison, you signed a prenuptial agreement that clearly stipulates the consequences of marital infidelity. You then engaged in a 7-month affair while systematically embezzling from joint accounts. I see no grounds for deviating from the prenuptial terms. Jennifer's attorney tried to interject. Your Honor, my client will be left with virtually nothing. Your client left herself with virtually nothing, the judge interrupted. Through her own choices. The prenuptial agreement was signed voluntarily, with independent legal counsel. It is valid and enforceable. Mr. Harrison will retain all assets acquired during the marriage. Mrs. Harrison will receive what she brought into the marriage, minus restitution for the embezzled funds. This court also orders Mrs. Harrison to pay Mr. Harrison's legal fees. Jennifer burst into tears. Her attorney looked defeated. Patricia simply nodded, gathering her papers. Outside the courthouse, Jennifer approached me one last time. She looked terrible, weight loss, dark circles under her eyes, clothes that didn't quite fit right anymore. The glossy, confident woman I'd married had been replaced by this hollow version. Are you happy now? She asked bitterly. You've taken everything. No, I replied honestly. I'm not happy. But I'm not destroyed either. There's a difference. I made a mistake, Derek. One mistake after 12 years of marriage, and you burned my entire life down. One mistake that lasted 7 months. One mistake that involved stealing nearly $50,000. One mistake that you planned and executed deliberately. I kept my voice level. And I didn't burn your life down, Jennifer. You did that yourself. I just refused to let you take mine with you. I loved you, she whispered. No, you didn't. If you had, none of this would have happened. I turned to leave, then paused. Ryan's wife filed for divorce too, by the way. She's getting primary custody and most of their assets. He's living in a studio apartment and working retail. In case you were wondering. Her face crumpled. I wasn't. Good. Because he's also not your problem anymore. Just like you're not mine. I walked away and didn't look back. 3 months later, I stood in my home office. The house felt less like ours and more like mine with each passing day. I'd redecorated the bedroom, donated the old furniture to charity, and bought new everything. The space felt clean now, unburdened by memory. My sister stopped by with coffee and lunch, a ritual we'd established in the aftermath. How are you doing? She asked, studying my face. Better, I admitted. Some days are harder than others, but overall, better. Any regrets? I considered the question carefully. About how I handled it. No. I did what I needed to do to protect myself. About the marriage ending? Yes. I regret that it came to this. But I don't regret the consequences I enforced. She nodded. You know people are calling you cold. Ruthless. I've heard. Word had spread through our social circle, dividing friends into camps. Some supported me. Others thought I'd been too harsh. Most just disappeared, uncomfortable with the whole situation. Do you think I was too harsh? I think you were prepared, she said. There's a difference between revenge and protection. You protected yourself. My phone buzzed, a message from Patricia. Final divorce decree signed by judge. It's official. 6 months after that Thursday afternoon, I sat in a coffee shop downtown, reviewing documents for a new investment opportunity. My life had settled into a new rhythm: work, gym, time with friends who'd proven their loyalty, and the occasional date that never went anywhere serious. I wasn't ready for serious. Maybe I wouldn't be for a long time. The cafe door opened, bringing a gust of autumn air. I glanced up out of habit and froze. Jennifer stood in line, looking even more diminished than at the courthouse. She wore cheap clothes, no makeup, and carried herself with the hunched posture of someone used to making themselves small. She hadn't seen me yet. I could have left. Should have. Probably. But something kept me in my seat, watching as she ordered a small black coffee, no elaborate latte, no pastry. When she turned with her cup, our eyes met. She went pale, then red, then seemed to deflate entirely. For a moment, I thought she'd leave. Instead, she walked toward my table. Derek. Jennifer. An awkward silence stretched between us. Finally, she gestured at the empty chair. May I? I nodded, curious despite myself. She sat, wrapping both hands around her cheap paper cup. I'm not here to ask for anything. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not because it will change anything, but because you deserve to hear it. I waited. She'd always been good with words when she wanted something. I've been in therapy, she continued, trying to figure out how I became the kind of person who could do what I did. My therapist says I was chasing validation, excitement, something to make me feel alive again. It's not an excuse. Nothing excuses it. But I'm trying to understand myself better. That's good, I said neutrally. Self-awareness is important. I got a job, she added. Entry-level accounting at a small firm. It pays a fraction of what I made, but they were willing to take a chance on me. I'm living in a studio apartment, driving my old Honda. Some days I can barely afford groceries. She wasn't asking for sympathy, I realized. She was just stating facts. I heard Ryan moved to another state, she continued, running from his debts and his reputation. Christine's kids are doing better, apparently. She started a blog about surviving infidelity that's gotten pretty popular. I know, I said. She sent me the link. Asked if I wanted to share my story. I declined. Jennifer smiled sadly. Because you're not interested in being a victim. Because I'm not a victim. I'm just someone whose wife made bad choices, and who refused to let those choices destroy him. She nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. I destroyed us. I destroyed everything we built. For what? For excitement that lasted a few months. For a man who didn't even really want me, just what he thought I could provide. Yes, I said simply. You did. I don't expect forgiveness. Good. Because I can't give it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I paused, considering my next words carefully. But I don't hate you either, Jennifer. I'm just done. With the anger, with the hurt, with all of it. I'm building a new life, and you're not part of it. She wiped her eyes. I know. I just needed you to know that I understand what I lost. Not the house or the money or the status. You. I lost you. The man who loved me unconditionally for 12 years. The man who would have done anything for me. I threw away something irreplaceable for something worthless. You did, I agreed. And now you have to live with that. Just like I have to live with the memory of who you turned out to be. She stood, coffee barely touched. Thank you for not walking away when you saw me. For giving me these few minutes. Jennifer, I said as she turned to leave. She looked back. I hope you figure yourself out. I hope you become the person you should have been. Not for me, we're done. But for yourself. And for whoever comes next. Fresh tears spilled over. I will. I promise I will. She left, and I watched her go, feeling something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly. But something like closure. My phone rang, a friend calling about dinner plans. I answered with a smile, making arrangements for the evening. Life went on. My life went on. A year after that Thursday, I stood in the backyard of my home. I'd finally stopped thinking of it as our home, hosting a barbecue. Friends filled the space, including a few I'd made since the divorce. People who knew me as Derek, not as that guy whose wife cheated. My sister pulled me aside at one point. "You look different. Lighter." "I feel different," I admitted. For a while, I thought the anger and the planning and the cold precision were who I'd become. But it turns out that was just survival mode. Now I'm figuring out who I am after everything. And who's that? Someone who knows his worth. Someone who won't accept less than he deserves. Someone who can be ruthless when necessary but doesn't want to live there. I smiled. Someone who's genuinely okay. Patricia, my attorney, was there too. We'd become friendly after the divorce concluded. She raised her glass to me. "To the best prepared client I've ever had. You made my job easy." "To preparation," I agreed, clinking glasses. "And to knowing when to walk away." Later, as the party wound down, I stood alone for a moment, looking at the stars. I thought about Jennifer, living her smaller life, working her modest job, facing consequences every day. I thought about Ryan, running from his past in some distant city. I thought about Christine, rebuilding with her children and helping others through her writing. And I thought about that Thursday afternoon, the moment my old life ended and this new one began. Some people called what I did cold. Others called it justified. I called it necessary. When someone shows you they're willing to betray everything you've built together, you have two choices: let them destroy you along with the relationship, or protect yourself with every tool available. I chose protection. I chose preparation.
I chose myself.
And I'd make the same choice again. The difference now was that I'd also chosen to let go of the rage, the hurt, and the need for continued vengeance. I'd enforced consequences, protected my future, and then, finally, moved on. That was the real victory. Not the house or the assets or the vindication in court. The real victory was standing in my backyard, surrounded by people who valued me, feeling genuine contentment about my life. Jennifer had tried to take everything from me. Instead, she'd freed me from a marriage built on lies. She'd forced me to become stronger, more aware, more protective of my own worth. In trying to destroy me, she'd actually saved me from wasting more years with someone who didn't value what we had. I raised my glass to the night sky, a private toast. To Thursday afternoons. To preparation. To consequences. And to the life that comes after you stop letting someone else's choices define your future. My phone buzzed with a message from someone I'd been casually seeing. Nothing serious yet, but promising. "Had fun tonight. Same time next week." I smiled and replied, "Absolutely." Life went on. Better than before. Honest, authentic, and mine. And that was exactly what I'd fought for.